Welcome to the special meeting of the Bakersfield City Council. Now speaking, the Honorable Mayor Karen K. Go.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to call to order the 12 p.m. City Council meeting of June 8th, 2020. We're still under Governor Newsom's COVID-19 guidance, and as such, some council members are joining the meeting via Zoom. So we have Council Member Smith and Council Member Freeman on Zoom. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Go.
Here.
Vice Mayor Parlier.
Here.
Council Members Rivera.
Here.
Gonzalez. Weir. Smith.
Councilmember Smith, do you have yourself unmuted?
Freeman.
Can you hear me now?
Councilmember Freeman. Or Smith.
I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
And Councilmember Sullivan.
Thank you. To comply with the Brown Act, we'll receive public statements now. Statements have been received by the clerk through email and phone call and have been provided to the council. We'll receive public comments on the workshop item after the staff presentation on that item. All statements are given a 3-minute time limit, 15 minutes per topic. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statement, please give those to the clerk. She'll give copies to the council. Please avoid any behavior that disrupts the meeting. We're very interested and concerned with your issues. Due to the public notice requirement of the Brown Act, the council can't take action when an item isn't on the agenda. The council can, however, refer your matter to committee or request that staff contact you. Madam Clerk, do you have any public speakers? No. Okay, next item, please, Madam Clerk.
Under workshops, we have department budget presentations. Number 1, water resources.
Thank you. Mr. Clegg, would you like to make some statements before?
Nope, we're going to jump right into presentations today.
All right. Mr. Cianello?
Well, good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. Art Cianello here, Water Resources Manager. And with me today I have Chris Budak, Water Resources Director, and Luda Fishman, our Business Manager. And I'm proud to say that this is my 10th year of presenting the Water Resources budget to council. So we're here today to present the proposed fiscal year 2021 proposed budget. Here's an organizational chart of our department. It consists of 2 divisions, the River and Agricultural Water Division and the Domestic Water Division. The Water Resources Department oversees the divisions of River and Agricultural Water and Domestic Water. The River and Agricultural Division manages the city's current river water rights for the benefit of all current and future citizens of Bakersfield. In addition, the River and Ag Division provides the regulation, distribution, water banking, and record-keeping operations on the Kern River. The Domestic Water Division oversees and administers the city's domestic water system that provides drinking water to over 154,000 residents and local businesses in Bakersfield. The next slide is our staffing slide. We're up to 30 employees total, and we increased from 28 employees 5 years ago. Some of the accomplishments of the River and Ag Water for this current fiscal year: we diverted over 950,000 acre-feet of Kern River water through city-owned diversion points along the Kern River, and it happened to be the 16th wettest year on record since 1893. That's when records had started. We increased the spreading capacity in Truxton Lakes by 40% by constructing and putting water in lakes 3 and 4. We diverted over 200,000 acre-feet through the Kern River Canal. That's a city-owned concrete-lined canal. And we replaced approximately 200 concrete panels in the city's concrete-lined canals that we own. The city banked over 54,000 acre-feet, or recharged over 54,000 acre-feet into the 2,800-acre spreading facility. And also, because it was a wet year, we also spread up to 10,000 acre-feet, or approximately 10,000 acre-feet, in the adjoining water recharge project, which is known as the Pioneer Project. First time we did that in over 20 years. We redistributed approximately 385,000 cubic yards of sand from the 2,800 acres spreading facility, and we rebuilt, actually, I think it was up to 3 slide gates at the Beardsley Canal head gate. And here's the Beardsley Canal head gate. You could see the condition of it before and after. So all of that work was done with our maintenance craft worker who purchased the material, welded it, fabricated it, and had installed it with giving direction to others. And so that is a major diversion structure where water is diverted from the Kern River into the Beardsley Canal on its way to North Kern Water Storage District, and we are responsible for maintaining it and operating it. So this was an upgrade we did for that project. The next one is the Bellevue Weir, which is behind Park at Riverwalk. We had cleaned out the primary flood channel as well as a lot of sand and redistributed a lot of sand that was caught upstream of the weir and smoothed it out and redistributed it downstream all the way to the Stockdale Bridge. So we cleaned it up nicely, and it's now a nice amenity, or a nicer amenity, for the people who enjoy the beach next to Park at Riverwalk and enjoy the water there. And there's water there right now, by the way. Some accomplishments for the domestic water division for this fiscal year. We continue to maintain and upgrade our domestic water system. We have currently under construction a previously drilled well. We call it well CBK 58, and that is a picture of the construction that's going on right now, where we're equipping the previously drilled well with a pump, a motor, and a block pump house. All of our TCP treatment facilities, which is 110 granular activated carbon vessels, they're fully operational, and we are entering our second year of operation there, still trying to understand what those costs are. I will tell you briefly that we had initially estimated about $3 million per year in granular activated carbon replacement to capture all of the TCP. And last year and this year's proposed budget, we're projecting about $1 million in replacement. So the project's been working well for us, and we continue to implement water conservation programs, and we're recently partnering with other urban water purveyors and the Water Association of Kern County to put out a water conservation message as the weather warms up this summer. In terms of water conservation, we're comparing the last, or the 12 months of 2019 calendar year with a pre-drought year, which was 2013. 2013 water consumption per month is shown in the red graph. The blue graph is water consumption of 2019. And even though the population has increased in our domestic water system over those 6 years, you will see that there's still a water reduction of water use reduction per person of about 14.2%. So that's pretty good given the fact that our domestic water system has grown, but yet we have an overall reduction in water use. Quickly, for us, an overview of the department's proposed budget. We have a column that compares this fiscal year's costs and expensive versus the proposed 2021 fiscal year. Generally flat in salaries and benefits, operations. In the River and Ag division, which is the first one we're showing there on the top, large reduction in capital improvements, almost minus 60%, or about $1.2 million. And that's because this year we've budgeted for our large electronic flow measuring SCADA project on the Kern River at approximately 20 diversion points along the river. So that money is encumbered, and so that allows us to reduce the capital costs for this upcoming proposed budget year. For domestic water, we do have an increase in capital improvement projects, and that's because in those capital improvement projects, we're planning on drilling a new well for growth, And so the funds available to pay for that growth is in our water connection fee, where that fee is restricted, where growth pays for growth. And it's about a $3 million project just to drill that well. And so that's where you see the large increase in capital improvement projects. Overall for our department, it's about a 16.1% increase in budget from the current year. And some of the noted capital improvement projects, the first one for $3 million is what I just discussed. It's our new well. It's located on the west side of town in Stockdale Ranch. There's some growth going on along Stockdale Highway, just on the south side of Stockdale Highway. A new well was required out there. So we're just finished going out for a request for proposals for doing that. And that's going to be budgeted in the upcoming fiscal year. Wellhead facility upgrades of $1 million. That's an existing well where we are getting some arsenic issues there. And so we're planning on installing arsenic treatment like we have at 6 other wells to remove arsenic at this existing well we have there. Service connection replacements, we continue along with Cal Water and other purveyors where we have old plastic pipe in the ground of service lines that goes from the main water line up to the person's property at their meter. And we have, in the older parts of town, have been experiencing leaks in those lines. We patch them one time. If they leak a second time, generally we pull the whole line out and replace it with copper pipe. And our new standard is copper pipe for service lines. So we should have, but we're still going through the replacement process of the old lines failing. And that's about $1 million a year for that. And then we've put in some money for pump station upgrades. That could be installation of emergency generators, conversion of oil lubrication to water lubrication, or some other upgrades that we may need at approximately 63 domestic water well sites. And then just for our river and ag division, we're putting in about $400,000 for fencing, which would be fencing that we could put along our canals, as well as along about 350 sumps. Some of them require fencing more often than not. And that's what that first line item there is. And then concrete panel replacement, the city does own 2 canals. One is 100% concrete line. The other one is concrete lined in portions. And over the years, that concrete lining cracks or wears. And so we replace those panels. And so we've budgeted some money in our capital improvement project for that. Here's our proposed revenues for the whole department. We're showing a pie chart here where the total revenues is around $33.7 million. About $29.7 million, or 88%, is for metered water sales on our domestic water division. And that's not just single-family homes, but that's multifamily homes as well as commercial. The river and ag water division, we do have some revenue there of about $2.7 million. We have spreading fees, we have transportation fees when we help run water through some of the city's facilities, other people's waters, and there's a transportation fee that helps us pay for operation and maintenance and some capital improvement projects. That's the revenue. And also we sell river water to 2 of the Cal Water treatment plants located in town, and that's a large portion of the revenue in our river and ag water of $2.7 million. And then finally, when we have our connection fees for new growth, we average about $1.3 million a year, and we restrict that money to pay for new growth projects. So the expenditures for the river and ag water division is around $5.5 million. Salary and benefits is around $2 million, or about 37% of the budget. Like we said earlier, capital improvement projects is around $800,000. And then we have our operating fund of around $2.7 million. And I will point out that because we do share facilities and operate and maintain the city's facilities for other people's water, we do have a billing mechanism where some of our labor and some of the costs to rebuild, like the Beardsley Head Gate on the picture that you saw earlier, we actually invoice the river groups, and so we get some reimbursement for some of the costs that we do expend in maintaining and operating all these structures. And for domestic water, we're showing an operating budget of around $32.4 million. Operations is about $23.6 million, or 73%. We mentioned the capital improvement projects, where we don't drill a new well every single year, but it's that time due to growth on the west side of Bakersfield in the Stockdale Ranch area, where we do need to have a well over there to maintain volume and pressure. That capital improvement project of $5.7 million, we see that fluctuate a lot from year to year. And then we have debt service. We have a debt service where we pay for treatment capacity in the Henry C. Garnett treatment plant, where we do get some state water or Kern River water going through that plant for treatment, and it serves like the middle portion of our domestic water system. And we have purchased capacity into that plant, and that is the debt service that we have. Okay, looking forward to the upcoming fiscal year, we continue and will continue to prioritize the city water for the local treatment plants, for recharging water within city boundaries, within city facilities, to help out with groundwater quality and groundwater levels to make sure they don't get too low. And we do have some historical contract obligations that we'll continue to uphold. In 2014, state of California had promulgated the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act law, and since that, we now have a groundwater sustainability agency, and we have issued a groundwater sustainability plan that we've submitted to the state in January of 2020. That plan prioritizes the city's water use to keep it local and to keep it within city facilities, 2,800 acres, for the benefit of all the citizens of Bakersfield. And so that's the path that we're trying to go down whenever possible. And then obviously the result of that is to provide for a safe and reliable water supply to city residents, which is our ultimate objective. For domestic water operations, we are upgrading, we have here well CBK 53, and that's the one where we're installing arsenic treatment. We're drilling that new well for $3 million, or it could be less, depending on how much treatment it needs and the water quality there on the west side of town. We're tracking our 110 granular activated carbon vessels at 35 different well sites to see how long the granular activated carbon is lasting. So far, we're very pleased with it. It's lasting longer than expected in most cases, and so we were budgeting $1 million for granular activated carbon changeouts there, and also $500,000 for TCP sampling, and it's a lot of sampling that goes on for all of these 110 vessels at 35 well sites, which is mandated by the state, both monthly and quarterly testing for TCP. That continues. This is just a glimpse of the different water purveyors within the city of Bakersfield. Generally on the west side, bounded north and south by Stein Road, you'll see a light green area there. That light green area is the city of Bakersfield's domestic water system. We have about 48,000 metered connections now, and we serve the population of about 154,000 people. On the north side, we go up to Norris Road. On the south, we go down to Taft Highway, or actually a little bit south of Taft Highway now, bounded on the east by Stein Road, and then the west, we go pretty far out as far as development is required on the west side. And next is we're comparing ourselves with our rates, our average monthly water bill, compared with 5 other local water purveyors. And this is just based on a small 5/8" domestic water meter, and assuming a consumption of 2,800 cubic feet per month, which is like a family of 3 or a family of 4. You could see Vaughn Water, average monthly water bill, the city of Bakersfield, then we have Oildale Mutual, and then the two others, California Water Service and East Niles. So we just updated these numbers to be the latest rates that they're currently charging. I will say that, I'm proud to say that this is the 4th year now. The good news is that the city of Bakersfield is not proposing to do a water rate increase. And the last part here, just before we get to questions, I just wanted to make just a few more comments, and that is the April through July snowmelt in 2020. It's relatively dry right now. It's about 48% of average being 100%. However, we still managed to provide some water in the river and within city facilities, such as Truxton Lakes, Parkett Riverwalk, and also deliver per our existing obligations. If you were to ask me what the next fiscal year holds, I will say that the Kern River is highly variable from year to year, some years being wet, other years being dry. Therefore, it's hard to predict what the next fiscal year will be like, but after 127 years of record keeping, I can say that there is a 50-50 chance that it will be around a 75% of average. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gianella. Council members who are on the phone will process this the same way as we have in the past. If you have a question or comment, please let the city clerk know, and she'll indicate that to me. I won't be calling on you individually. I don't see any requests right now to speak from council members up here. Council member, Vice Mayor, you're about to push your button? Vice Mayor.
I'm pushing buttons up here. Anyway, I just want to say thanks, good presentation, and thank your staff for all their hard work. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Next, we are on to Public Works. Mr. Fiddler. Don't feel obligated to show every one of this thick packet of slides.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Council members. Nick Fiddler, Public Works Director. Today with me I have Roseanne Padley, who is the Assistant to the Public Works Director, and Stuart Pattison, Assistant Public Works Director. In addition, I have a host of other managers close by in the conference room, just in case we need to be. First off, I'd like to thank Roseanne for her hard work in putting together this budget this year. It was quite difficult with COVID-19 hitting right after the budget was complete and having to recreate everything, and also for Chris Hewott and Randy McKeegan's support in preparing that. Today I am appreciative to be able to present the Public Works Department's proposed fiscal year 2021 operating and CIP budget. This is a snapshot of our organizational chart. As you can see, there are 11 divisions and a municipal airport that the Public Works Department oversees. This is a staffing levels, a slide of the staffing levels. As you can see, we are proposing 11 new positions and 1 transfer of a maintenance craft worker 2 from the fire department to the Public Works General Services Division, for a total of 12 new employees for the fiscal year 2021. The new positions request by funding, first section is multiple funding sources, which includes PSVS, enterprise funds, sewer, refuse, fleet. We're requesting a new assistant public works director and then an administrative analyst 2. In the refuse fund, we are proposing 3 new positions. In the sewer fund, we are proposing 1 position. And in the PSVS fund, we are proposing 4 new positions within the fleet division. Or I'm sorry, 3 in the fleet division and 1 in the general services division. This slide represents approximately $12.1 million increase in the, or 9.3% increase in the operating budget for Public Works. Approximately $3.2 million in personnel, $4 million in operating, and $4.9 million in capital outlay. The increase in capital outlay is due to the equipment fund for the purchase of replacement and new vehicles. So the operating budget by funding source. The total increase to the Public Works operating budget is approximately $12.1 million. For the general fund, salaries and benefits make up approximately $1.2 million increase, followed by increases in liability insurance. Solid waste represents an approximate $3.2 million of the $4.4 million in the enterprise funds, which will be detailed in the upcoming slide. For equipment management, the $6.1 million increase is primarily capital outlay and is budgeted for replacement and new vehicles. The additional equipment includes 4 in water resources, 1 in refuse, and 47 in PSVS. On top of that, we're requesting 2 pieces of equipment added through the refuse fund, and 3 pieces of equipment will be added through the sewer enterprise fund. So the proposed budget and where it comes from. So refuse equates to 41% or $58.3 million of the overall $142.6 million operating budget within Public Works, followed by equipment at 24% or $34.8 million, and general fund at 18% at $25.5 million. The all other funds includes the airport and Amtrak and some of the smaller other divisions. So operating budget summary by division. The solid waste budget is $53 million. I know I just said 58.3, but there are some refuse funds that go into both streets and general services, so that's why there's a drop to $53 million out of their operating. And then fleet is $34.8 million, streets is $20.4, wastewater is $11.5 million, and general services is $14.3 million, and engineering at approximately $7 million. And both the admin and trip are under $1 million apiece. So solid waste operating budget increase is a total increase of $3.2 million to the refuse fund, and it is associated to some significant increase in costs associated with fleet, the contract haulers, salaries and benefits, curbside recycling, gate fees, and administrative charges. As you may be aware, the cost of equipment and parts have significantly increased over the past few years, primarily due to increased cost in steel materials. That resulted in a $1.4 million increase to the fleet rental, operations, and maintenance of equipment. An increase of 3.1 in the consumer price index has resulted in just under 925 million, or just under 925,000 increase to the contract haulers fees, and 416 for salaries, benefits, and related PERS, COLA, and the addition of 3 new employees. Administrative charges are increases to the administrative allocation of $75,000, telephone charges of $30,000, and credit card charges of $60,000. Local roadway maintenance and right-of-way improvements. These are efforts we use to stabilize the city's roadways. Local road maintenance and right-of-way funding is up approximately $18.9 million over previous year. Of this, TDF funds has increased approximately $9 million for trip projects. Capital outlay has increased approximately $700,000. Federal funds has increased approximately $5.5 million over previous year, and utility surcharges increased $2.5 million, with CDBG increasing just under $900,000. So proposed rate increases. We are proposing a refuse rate increase, the proposed 4% rate increase, primarily due to 3.1% hauler contract increases. That's a directly pass-through from city to the contract haulers. And so the residential customers will go from $214 to $223 annually. We're proposing no rate increases for the sewer rates. This is a history of the refuse rates versus the consumer price index. You can see there was a flat line between fiscal year 11-12 to fiscal year 15-16. We now had to continue to catch up with the consumer price index over the past few years and the ongoing costs to keep up with the refuse costs. Two of the significant drivers of raising the costs are the current recycling program, and then we have new SB 1383, which is coming out, which will require a lot more efforts in landfill diversion, which will be a part of next year's program. If you can, this is a survey of 19 cities surveyed, or 18 cities surveyed. You can see that the city of Bakersfield is at the bottom of this survey with a rate of $214. Like I said, this is going to go up to $223, but even with the rate increase, you can still see we're well below any existing cities or comparable cities with the city of Bakersfield. We actually did a survey of 37 cities, and we still are the lowest, but it was just too much information to put on this slide. So moving into accomplishments, the TRIP program, construction in progress. We have 24th Street, which many of you have seen the ongoing efforts out there. We've completed the installation on both 23rd of the drainage system on both 23rd and 24th Street. 6 of the 7 sound walls have been completed. Paving on 23rd Street is complete with 4 lanes open between the couplet areas, and then the estimated completion is this summer. Continuing on with TRIP construction in progress, the Kern River Bridges, which is substantially complete, is expected to open or be complete this summer. Construction of the Bell Terrace operational project. Just to let you know that they will be pouring the bridge deck on the Bell Terrace Bridge this month. So that's a major milestone, which will allow us to remove the false work and open up the lanes below that by July once it cures and they post-tension the bridge. Anticipated completion is supposed to be in November of 2020. Continue with TRIP, construction in progress, the Bakersfield Freeway Connector. The construction started February of 2019 and is anticipated to be complete in August 2021. Centennial Corridor Mainline Project, that started in July of 2019 and is anticipated to be complete in fall of 2022. There is a significant amount of work going on in that project. If you have not been through the West Park area, please drive through there. There's several bridges that are under construction. And if you go to Real Road and just south of Stockdale Highway, you can see some of the new bridges taking shape there as well. The Stockdale Highway and Enos Lane roundabout is substantially complete. There's a few lighting standards they still need to install, and that construction started in July of 2019, and it's, like I said, it's substantially complete, just working through some punch list items. TRIP's action plan is to continue currently projects currently under construction, the 24th Street widening, the Phase 2 Bell Terrace operational improvements, the Phase 3 Bakersfield Freeway Connector, and Phase 4 Centennial Corridor Mainline Project. Moving into construction of widening Rosedale Highway from Verdugo to Callaway, and then continue with the acquisition of right-of-way for Hagman Flyover. Moving into engineering accomplishments, pavement rehabilitation. Like I mentioned before, there's a little bit over $9.5 million in federal funds for various roadway projects. That includes the RSTP program and also some traffic signal improvements. The Brundage Lane from Washington Street to Oswald Street, that will be starting construction in the next few weeks. And then F Street, 24th Street to State Route 204 has been awarded and will also start within the next few months. Pavement rehabilitation, Senate Bill 1, White Lane from South 8th Street to Kinney Street, and Buena Vista Road from San Joaquin Valley Railroad to White Lane. That project has been completed. Continuing with street improvements, we have 5 different projects that we're working on. Panama Lane from Young Street to Cactus Patch Drive has been completed. College Avenue from Flint Ridge Drive to Fairfax Road is going to be under construction in the next few weeks. Coordinating that project with East Niles Water District, and then Brundage Lane and Union Avenue, Phase 1B and 5 are in the works. Median improvements, Niles Road and Brown Street. The medians are 90% complete, waiting on some decorative rock to be installed, and then 19th Street at Robinson Street. And then California Avenue between Oak Street and H Street is complete. Engineering continued, sidewalk pedestrian improvements, Brundage Lane from Oak Street to Chester Avenue, and then L Street from Truxton Avenue to 23rd Street. Sidewalks and greenscape improvements, Kentucky Street between Bill and Mount Vernon. That project has been designed. We are just waiting for approval for the environmental document to move forward and put that project out to bid. Traffic engineering or traffic signal installation, Panama Lane at Mountain Ridge Drive and McKee Road in Stein. Traffic signal modification at Columbus and Mount Street and Union Avenue. That project has been long in the making. It's almost complete now. Facility improvements, pickleball and basketball courts at Mason Marine Sports Complex, that is open. Fire Station 2 locker room remodel, bathroom remodel, that project is complete. And then Police Department shooting range, we are in the demolition stage, and the contractor is acquiring all the materials for that project and starting fabrication. ITS traffic signal coordination projects. We have a CMAQ funded projects on Buena Vista Road and Allen Road and Callaway Drive. Those projects are complete. Bike and pedestrian projects, 2020 bike and pedestrian safety plan is complete, and pedestrian countdown timer is now at 415 signalized intersections is complete. Continue on, sewer and storm drain lift stations. You could see 2 storm and 1 sewer lift station, and then we sewer rehabilitation CIP liners, F Street CIP. That project has been awarded. We'll be going into construction, and then the downtown master studies, both of those are in progress. The engineering action plan is continue to advance the city's CIP plan, continue submitting applications for federal, state funding and grants, continue to incorporate ADA transition plans, and complete streets policy projects, continue to evaluate pavement priority lists using pavement management system, and then continue to improve improve service and development community. We remodeled the old El Torito restaurant located at 4646 California into the Bakersfield Police Training Facility. And then removed graffiti from 15,300 sites, striped 818 miles of city roadways, and then responded to 1,700 street light service requests. Continue with general services accomplishments, Mechanic Bank Arena and Convention Center improvements, built the elevator bar and painted the pedestrian bridge. We're working on the pedestrian bridge. Upgraded the ice chiller at Mechanics Bank Arena, and then completed the electrical and HVAC work at the Bakersfield Police Department training facility. Action plan is to continue to improve the anti-graffiti program, review and pursue energy efficient projects, and continue to complete ADA improvements. Streets accomplishments, resurfaced, reconstructed 110 lane miles of city streets, includes SB1 funded projects, sealed 250 miles of surface penetration sealer, cleaned, maintained approximately 800 miles of city-owned sewer lines, and the constructed new curb, gutter, and sidewalks, CDBG eligible areas. Resurfaced bike paths from Manor Street to Alfred Harold Highway. They constructed the building pad and concrete at BD Training Facility. Stein Road at McCutcheon Road Canal culvert replacement. This was a washout that happened. We went in and reconstructed the culvert and the roadway. And then ADA improvements with both PDT, MISIA, and TDA bus stop improvements. The Streets 2021 Action Plan is to continue to preserve and maintain city streets, by utilizing pavement management system, continuing work in CDBG areas with new funding, continue video inspection of sewer mains for maintenance and repairs, continue to work on ADA transition plan by improving ADA access ramps and sidewalks with various funding sources such as TDA and CDBG. Fleet services accomplishments, continue replacement of aging equipment. Fleet was approved to purchase 120 replacement vehicles in fiscal year 1920. In addition, Fleet was approved to acquire 51 vehicles as part of the PSVS early acquisition and additions for various city apartments. Continue commitment to purchase clean air vehicles. So the Fleet's action plan, continue to convert more of the city's fleet to clean air vehicles and lower emissions. Expedite purchase of budgeted replacement equipment. Ensure that vehicles are placed into service in a timely manner. Wastewater accomplishments, they generated 218 million gallons of tertiary treated water and recycled 447 tons of biosolids. Primarily the tertiary treated water is what's watering the irrigation at the sports village and around the perimeter of wastewater treatment plant number 3. Completed a multi-year project to replace a total of 8 variable frequency drives at Plant 2, replaced a 40-foot section of critically damaged influent line at Plant 3, and completed the septage rate study and collection system odor and corrosion control study. Continue to expand wastewater's outreach program, including the successful launch of Can't Flush This campaign. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, but with the COVID-19, the use of these non-flushable wipes have increased significantly, and we've been seeing a significant amount of plugged sewer lift stations within the last week or two. We're having to go out to a couple of our major lift stations daily to remove these wipes from the system to avoid failure of those lift stations. Wastewater action plan, provide continuous operation and maintenance of wastewater's treatment plants to ensure secondary and tertiary effluent is properly recycled for use. Percolation use and irrigation use, perform an update of the wastewater's revenue program to ensure each sewer user is paying their fair share for sewer service, and then transition the maintenance and operation of the city-owned farm fields to a new farming firm to ensure continuous sustainable disposal of the city's biosolids. Just recently, we entered into a new contract to take over the farm out there, 5,000-acre farm just south of wastewater treatment plant 2. That farmer will actually start farming some of the fields later this fall, so he'll be able to go directly into production on January 1st. Our solid waste accomplishments, anti-litter efforts, 850 youth educated, 7,263 volunteers, 385,500 pounds of litter, illegal dumps cleaned up, and then beautification efforts of 102 trees planted and 435 flowers. Unfortunately, these numbers are a little bit lower than what we'd like. Due to COVID-19, we weren't able to get out with mass groups and do the big cleanups. Moving into that, due to COVID-19 concerns, Great American Cleanup was postponed until the fall of 2020, although smaller litter sweeps and beautification efforts will continue. Solid waste accomplishments. We did, as part of COVID-19, we established emergency transfer station out at the green waste facility. This increased route efficiency. The trucks weren't having to drive as far out to the Bena landfill. Decreased wear and tear of the collection vehicles again on that long drive. Reduced overtime. Reduced truck overweights, and then reduced air emissions. So there's a lot of positive that did come out of that one effort. Recycling gates are now up to $148 a ton. In comparison, landfill gates are $45 a ton, so basically $100 more for us to recycle than to just take them to the landfill, but it is a requirement of the state that we do meet certain recycle components. Cities are landfilling mixed recycled paper due to lack of outlets. However, the city is the only city composting mixed paper to avoid landfilling it. We've been able to mix that into the green waste composting facility and have that break down as part of that. So we are still trying to do our part as recycling. Moving into the fiscal year 2021 action plan, continue anti-litter efforts, continue outreach for commercial recycling. That is going to be a big component of SB 1383, which will have the city enforce recycling to commercial businesses, and then work on finding renewable power options for the Mount Vernon facility, work on establishing a permanent refuse transfer station at the Mount Vernon facility. As I mentioned earlier, has been a significant improvement to our operations to the solid waste division, so we look to continue that effort, and then work on route optimization for collection vehicles. Let me go back real quick. Another thing I'd like to add on is we are still doing some research on our recycling program, which we will move into in our action plan, trying to reduce the costs that we're paying for recycled materials. We're looking at performing a pilot program in-house to deal with that. Moving into the capital improvement program for fiscal year 2021. The Public Works, which includes the TRIP, is roughly $58.8 million of the program, and Recreation and Parks at 11.5, with Development Services at 9.7. Art had mentioned his water resources capital improvement projects, and then you see a host of smaller projects through various other departments, which for a total of $88.5 million. So looking at some of the street improvements, you can see 4 pavement rehabilitation projects listed in the first group, and then there are 5 curb, gutter, and sidewalk ADA improvements in various CDBG areas, and then pavement resurfacing utilizing SB1 funds. You can see there's some block areas that we're including in the SB1 funds. Again, street improvements, other street projects, citywide maintenance, our typical streets division work, and then street widening on Berkshire Road, Hageman Road, and then a bridge deck rehabilitation on Allen Road. And then we have a miscellaneous project for replacing guardrails at various locations, and then planning for a Berkshire Road and Progress Road at-grade crossing. We have 2 traffic signal projects, and then 2 traffic signal / coordination projects that we're proposing, and then 4 bike and pedestrian improvements. 2 of the 4, the Hageman flyover and the Friant Kern, are for design only. All these projects have various matching funding, federal and state funding sources. Sewer improvements, some cured in place pipe liner in 23rd and 24th Street. As part of the 23rd and 24th Street project, we had identified some of the sewers were meeting their useful life, so we will be putting a cast in place liner in those segments of the crossings. And then storm improvements on Truxton Avenue as part of the pavement rehab, and then storm lift station modification at 24th Street and Oak Street, and then continuation of the downtown master drainage study. So facility improvements at wastewater treatment plants 2 and 3. You can see a significant amount of improvements to both those plants. They're both well due. The sewer is quite hard on our systems out there. There's a lot of deterioration due to the gases and the abrasiveness of these sewers. The Bakersfield Municipal Airport, we have 3 potential projects, one of them being safety cameras out there. There's been a lot of vandalism to the airport, so we're trying to mitigate some of that. And then the others are in preparation of future federal funds. The Green Waste Facility, we have 5 different projects that are proposed at that site. And then a host of miscellaneous projects that we'll be working on. One of the interest is 30 electrical vehicle charging stations at 6 public parking locations, and then an upgrade to street lighting on F Street between Golden State Highway and 24th Street. And then some of our standard budgets for miscellaneous repairs to damaged facilities. Public safety and vital services measures, remodel the downtown fleet facility with the addition of all the new officers comes the host of all the new vehicles, so we need to expand that facility to be able to perform maintenance on those vehicles. And then street light study implementation, we are kicking off our street light study that will provide us locations to prioritize for those installation of additional street lights. A master tree plan for the downtown area. It's more of a master downtown planning for various elements, the street lights, landscaping, bollards, and banners, not bollards, banners. The Bakersfield Homeless Navigation Center, street and off-site improvements. And then moving into trip projects, we have the continuation of the Beltway operational project, the Centennial Corridor Phase 4 main line, 1.8 miles of freeway connecting State Route 58 east of State Route 99 is the main line. The Centennial Corridor Phase 2 Bell Terrace, which is wrapping up, and then the widen the outside of State Route 58, State Route 99 grade separation, and then acquiring right-of-way for the Hagman flyover. And that completes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. City Clerk, I don't see any requests to speak from our colleagues on the phone. And Councilmember Rivera.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Nick. Quick question on the streetlight study implementation. Can you remind me what the timeline was for completing it?
Well, Honorable Mayor, Councilmember Rivera, we had originally started the streetlight study to actually start in February of this year, but right as we were getting ready to kick it off and award it to the vendor, COVID-19 hit, and the vendor that we were originally proposing withdrew his submittal. So we had to go back to the second submitter and have been working with him since to get everything in place so he can start and will be awarded at the June 24th council meeting. So there was a little bit of a delay, partly due to COVID-19 and partly due to staffing challenges.
Okay. Is there, so, I mean, unless I'm incorrect in assuming it won't take a year to complete the study, is there anything in here for maybe initial funding as it relates to streetlights and the results you get from the study?
That was the project that I discussed. The project to do the
street
study,
project?
no,
You mean funding for the actual study
yeah,
itself?
the funding for the actual study was completed already. This project is to implement whatever the study approves.
And for the sake of clarity, Mayor and council members, there's $1 million set aside in the PSVS capital improvement budget. We don't assume that will necessarily meet all of the recommendations of the study, but that'll be our first phase of $1 million worth of work.
So we do have that programmed going into this next.
That's correct. And the study will prioritize that, and we'll bring back to council once we get the study complete to show the prioritization, and that prioritization will be utilized for that $1 million.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, thanks, Nick, and thanks to your staff, too. The city doesn't move without Public Works. Could you go back to the new position slide for me, please?
Can you read this up there?
If you can't get it, I can just paraphrase it.
It's your fourth slide.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to. Do you know how to go back to the beginning?
You know what? Don't worry about it, Nick. So on the 4 positions that you've requested via PSVS, Fleet Mechanic 1, Fleet Services Worker 2, Fleet Mechanic 2, Maintenance Craft Worker 1. I'm sure these are desperately needed positions, and they'll probably be ancillary positions to help support broader PSVS duties via the police department, homeless stuff that was put in the measure. But I want us to be extremely careful, and this is really directed to the city manager's office and not necessarily your department, but all departments, that as we present information to the Measure N Committee, even council, that we look at with the laser focus on positions that would probably be, if they're more than 50%, probably affiliated with a general fund duty, that those positions should be there. We just have to be real careful about baking in positions to the Measure N body of money, and we don't have position creep. And eventually, where Measure N was set for, again, homeless, law enforcement services, tap down crime, that it just doesn't become a bucket of money for, again, positions that should be better suited in general fund. Thanks, Nick.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Nick, for your presentation. And just let me publicly thank you and your department for all of the work you've done for the city, and in particular for Ward 2. And next to the police department, I think I'm in touch with you pretty often. Yeah. And so and Diane's probably shaking her head because I'm in contact with Parks as well. But thank you for all the work, seriously. I wanted to touch bases with regard to the pavement management system. And if you can kind of describe for me the flow. So we identify a street that needs to be repaired, and I understand it's sort of categorized or prioritized based on the quality of the roadway, and then what is the length of time on average for that roadway to be repaired?
So the pavement management system ranks the roadway on a pavement condition index, which is from 0 to 100, 0 being completely failed, and then 100 being a brand new roadway. So the pavement management system takes into account the life of the roadway, the maintenance that's been performed on that roadway on an annual basis. For instance, we go through and do a oil binder sealer on the roadway every 5 years. That's added to the pavement management system. The pavement management system, what first initiated it, we have a vendor come out and they travel every roadway, drive every lane mile, and they use a camera and devices to determine the pavement condition index of that roadway. And so the pavement condition index is utilized to rank the roadway or give it priority when it needs to be resurfaced or reconstructed. So if it's maybe in the 70s, 60s, 70s, it might just be a resurface. But if it's in the 20s, 30s, it's going to be a reconstruct. So that helps us identify what techniques we're going to be utilizing when we're coming up with budgets, and then also provides us a ranking of the priority. And we utilize the pavement condition index and the volume of traffic on the roadway to determine how to best utilize our funds that are available to us.
And how often do we go back out and reevaluate the pavement throughout the city?
We're actually in the process of doing that. We'll be contracting that same consultant here in the next, towards the end of this summer, to have them come back out in the fall once we complete all of our current paving projects. That way they can get a good snapshot, because in the fall we're not doing maintenance or paving when the weather is bad. So they can come and get a good snapshot where we are for the next fiscal year when we go into our budget season. So this coming fiscal year we'll be moving into that, where we're trying to get to it this fiscal year, but we had a staff member that resigned that was overseeing that project, and we were not able to get that project out.
So when was the last evaluation of the pavement?
I want to say about 4 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
it's good to do it about every 2 to 3 years.
I was just going to ask.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our target is 3 years, really, and especially with the weather that we've been having lately, with the significant amount of rains. That's what's created a lot of damage to our roadways. Continued rains like that encouraged the potholes to start developing. So the last 2 years have been very hard on our pavements.
I appreciate that. I just request through the city manager that we undergo that evaluation on a far more regular basis, so that we can evaluate not only the road conditions, but also as a performance indicator for how well we're actually repairing the roads. From my perspective, anecdotally, you know, there are a lot of roads in Ward 2 that are being repaired, and I have a long list. And so there are bigger questions, though, from where we sit as a council with regard to how quickly are we repairing roadways? Do we need to add additional capacity so that we can repair roads at a faster clip? And then finally, the local road maintenance and right-of-way improvement funding sources. I'm really interested in seeing, and this is not a question for you to answer today, but perhaps you can, but definitely looking at the future fiscal years as TRIP winds down, what dollars do we have freed up available for reinvestment in additional road improvements, not only maintenance, but also additional improvements to some of our more historic neighborhoods.
And you've seen a significant increase over the past 2 years because the TRIP is winding down. Some of the funding that TRIP utilizes isn't allowable for street resurfacing like TDF.
Mm-hmm.
That's more utilized for widening projects. But just to let you know, every one of these council members have a long list just like you.
I'm aware. Thank you.
Councilmember Rivera.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a quick clarifying on the pavement management system. In that review, you said laned roads. Is it, I don't know if there's a distinction, but does it review neighborhood roads as well when they do? It's every single road surface?
Every roadway
Okay,
within the
got it.
city's jurisdiction.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's no discrimination in terms of neighborhoods. It is clearly done on this evaluation.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. You know, oftentimes we hear questions about that, and so I think that would be important to be able to share with the public that there is a rather scientific way of doing it. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few questions. You mentioned the Allen Road Bridge and also the Hageman Road lane, additional lane east of Jewetta. What, you know the timing on those two projects?
The Allen Road Bridge is we have design funds for this year and construction funds for next year. We've met with pavement recyclers to get some design concepts and with AECOM. So we do have a plan that will move into design construction probably earlier in the fiscal year. And then the Hageman road widening is design complete and will be ready to issue for construction once the budget's adopted.
Okay, last time I talked to you about Hageman, there was a right-of-way problem. You got that straightened out?
Oh, that's a good question. I forgot about that one. I'd have to follow up with my staff to see if that was resolved.
Okay, let me know. Brim Hall Road, I seen you did some work on it. I know we were kind of expecting the Commons to do that paving and improvement, but that seems not to be going to happen soon, and the road's deteriorated. What's going on there?
So we applied a blade seal to the roadway, knowing that a blade seal will last 2 to 3 years to give the Commons the chance to get working on that project, because as you're aware, the part of the project has a significant amount of infrastructure improvements, whether it be water, cable, phone, electrical. So we didn't want to go through and do a resurfacing on that, knowing that it would ultimately get tore up as part of the Commons project. So at that point, we just put a blade seal to hold it over 2 to 3 years for the developer, to give him some time to get in there and get his improvements in.
Okay. And I just want to repeat comment I made on the downtown tree plan. You know, it's always referenced as a tree plan, but what we're really looking for is, you know, not just a plan for trees or putting trees in, to make sure that somehow they're watered as businesses come and go, property owners come and go, that, you know, the trees just aren't left to die, that somehow we've got a long-term maintenance plan for downtown trees.
Noted.
Thank you. Any other requests to speak? Thank you very much, Mr. Fiddler. Appreciate all your work. Let's take a 10-minute break, and then we'll be back. Okay, Mr. Boyle, on to developmental services. And I hope you make it really exciting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. We all know that Development Services is the most exciting department in the city of Bakersfield, although I am having budget envy after having to follow Mr. Fiddler. Thank you for inviting me here for the proposed fiscal year 2021 budget for Development Services. Development Services, if the proposed budget is approved, will have a total of 89 employees with the adoption of the budget. Those employees are broken into the 3 divisions as 15 with planning, 15 with economic and community development. And we'll talk about economic and community development as a separate component of today's presentation, and 55 employees with the building division. In support of this presentation, I would note that I do have Building Director Phil Burns, Principal Planners Cecilia Griego and Nina Carter, as well as Business Manager Misty Eden with me in audience today. Also, as part of staffing, I would note that there are 5 positions that are proposed to be added to the division, to the department as a part of the budget. One of those positions is a development services tech, which will help with the multi-year general plan update process. I find that to be an important and integral component in being able to bring that to the council in a timely fashion. And a timely fashion as it relates to general plan updates would be about the 3-year mark. There's also additional personnel proposed within the building division in support of the rapid response team and code enforcement, and that helps that department to better respond to what has become an important and integral component in terms of addressing homelessness and the effects of homelessness on the city. When you look at the department's budget overall, it's a total of a little over $10 million, and there's really nothing too dramatic as it relates to additional changes within the budget. So in moving forward, I would say that if you look at the middle line here in terms of fiscal year 2021 proposed, you can see in that it's a $10 million budget. You can see about 34% of that is funded through general fund, 47% through the Development Services Fund, and about 19% of the department's budget for building and planning is funded through PSVS. We talk about PSVS and the department's goals. Those goals closely align with fulfilling the goals of Measure N and the Public Safety Vital Services tax measure. And we can see that within a lot of the things I brought you over the course of the year, whether that is additional funds for affordable housing or all of the measures to address homelessness as it relates to the city's contributions and support for existing service providers, as well as providing for the purchase and creation of the Bakersfield Homeless Navigation Center. Add to that the desire of council to provide for easier development processes and the building division's efforts with the implementation of an online paperless permitting system. You can see that the city's development services goals closely aligned with the City Council's goals. We look at the accomplishments of the planning division. The planning division is broken up into 3 specific components, and those go far in setting the table for development to occur within the city. When I look at building and planning, We'd like to get to a place where we provide services from application for development to occupancy of that development, and that starts with the planning division and that integration between those two divisions. Right now, planning division's major accomplishments are associated with completing the Bakersfield's new habitat conservation plan and retiring the current existing metropolitan habitat conservation plan. As you know, we're working hard in developing and improving upon our annexation strategies and beginning to develop a more cohesive city limits and collaborating with the county in facilitating that happening. And we've already started the foundational work in terms of beginning to move forward with our general plan update and citizen outreach, stakeholder outreach as a first step within that. And you'll be seeing that on upcoming agendas. When you look at it from a SEER numbers perspective, the planning division has processed just shy of 200 entitlement applications this year. And they span everything from your standard development proposal, a site plan review, to general plan zone changes. And when you're doing 8 general plan zone changes a year, that's maybe a precursor or a red flag that maybe it is time for us to move forward with that general plan update. The building division's accomplishments this year, first and foremost, they're in the process of and have adopted the 2019 California Building Code. I've mentioned the online electronic plan check and permitting contract that was awarded to Avolve and our desires to roll that out. Haven't really been held up too badly by the pandemic, so we still have an expected go-live date of late this summer. And the continued prudent application of the city's ordinance through our code enforcement division and specifically the rapid response team. If we look at the numbers from the building division, even with COVID-19 right now, we're looking at exceeding the number of new housing starts that were completed in fiscal year 18-19, just slightly over or just shy of 1,300 units in single-family residential permits will be issued for this calendar year. In terms of building permits overall, that trend line still is higher than fiscal 18-19 with over 13,000 building permits issued over the course of this fiscal year. This is an extrapolation of data with actuals up until April 30th of this past year, this current year. In terms of our rapid response team and its contributions, you can see here that we've had almost 2,000 complaints received as it relates to encampments, another nearly 300 with vacant structures, and almost 700 with abandoned property or trash that the rapid response team has responded to. And from that, we've seen, 2,924 cubic yards of trash removed, over 500, almost 600 sites cleaned, a multitude of shopping carts addressed. We've had property seized in almost 250 bins of property and made contacts with over 1,300 clients. Now, in the end, oftentimes when you look at building and planning, you look for sticks and dust in the air. And as I've had the ability to peruse the town, it seems like in every quadrant you do see commercial development occurring within the city. These two graphics here, one would be for the Panama and Ash, that would be on your left side, the left side of your screen, and the right side of your screen would have the conceptuals for the Stockdale Highway and Buena Vista development that's actively being developed. So we do see commercial development occurring within the city. I would also note that we've seen an uptick this year in the amount of multifamily residential that's been being constructed, and that's no small reason why our our trend lines have been relatively consistent even with COVID-19 in terms of development fees that have come into the city. So as a segue to our accomplishments in the last year and tying into something better, the Development Services Department is doing everything it can to plan something better and build something better within the community. So here's our goals for 2021. The general plan update is the primary goal for development services moving forward, or the planning division's goals moving forward for the year. When you look at the data, the city has seen a 49.7% population increase since 2002. It's seen its land area jump by 32%. There are new state guidelines in place. There are changes in CEQA. In looking at the admin draft from our consultant, who's looking at options that the council may consider as part of moving forward with our general plan update, there is a long laundry list of things that the general plan needs to be updated in order to make it a contemporary plan to guide the future of the city forward. So the next steps would be that we'll be presenting that report to the Planning Commission and the City Council in the very near future for your digestion and to take your instruction moving forward into the next year. But although the general plan is job one, there are many other things that the Planning Division has on its plate moving forward for the year. There's a preparation of a climate action plan. There's a municipal services review that LAFCO has asked us to complete. There's preparation for the upcoming housing element update and how to integrate that within the general plan update. There's the retirement of the Metropolitan Bakersfield Habitat Conservation Plan and the completion of the Bakersfield Habitat Conservation Plan that's now been released to both state and federal agencies for their review and our anticipated approval. There would be the EIR associated with that, and we're pleased to see that we got a Phase 4 grant for $600,000 to get that across the finish line. There's annexations that we have in process right now. There's a McAllister Ranch EIR. There's a long list in a bucket list of things we'd like to accomplish in the next year. In terms of building division goals, we want to continue to improve the response times and efficiencies of the rapid response team. It's become an asset to the community. We want to capitalize on that asset and provide that service in an efficient and appropriate scale. Our software upgrade, we're really excited about that. It's a big step going from paper to online permitting, where you, at your discretion, you may want to print your building permit, but it won't necessarily be a necessity. And that process will begin at planning with just plan check submittals and approvals at the planning level, then moving into the building department through plan check, permit, and then ultimately inspections. And we're excited about making that next step and moving into the 21st century. There's a desire to enhance code enforcement with a rapid response team, and with your approval of this budget, we'll have additional personnel to really become a rapid response team. It's been a very popular tool for the city to utilize, and consequently our response times haven't necessarily been rapid. And with the additional personnel, we'd like to close in on those timelines. It provides us the ability to continue to focus on homelessness, provide for homeless outreach, business owner outreach, and the like. And we'd like to improve upon our referrals and maximizing the utility of the council referral management system and resolve issues in a timely fashion. So here we are at the end of my presentation for the Development Services Department, specific to the Building Division and Planning Division. If you have any questions whatsoever, it's been a wonderful first 7 months here, and I'm really excited about the next year. I'd be happy to answer questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle. I don't see any questions here. What do you think our constituents would say about how we have impacted homelessness?
That's a good question, Madam Mayor. And it's almost, if I might be candid, I think that up until the coronavirus pandemic occurred, that the city was making meaningful and visually realistic improvements to the impact of homelessness on the area. And, but in the interest of the health and safety of the homeless community, we largely haven't gone out and attacked homeless encampments in the community because there is a health pandemic in place right now. Still, nonetheless, when you look at the overall contribution the city has made in a very short time through PSVS, I would like to think that our constituent is absolutely impressed with the efforts of the city and the application of PSVS dollars towards homelessness. It's a tool that other cities don't have, and with it, but it's not something that happens overnight. So if you look at the types of efforts that are in the pipeline and going to be coming to fruition in the next year, whether that's additional affordable housing units or additional beds for the homeless or the ability to use rapid response team again as the pandemic comes to a close, I think that the citizens of Bakersfield should be wholly impressed with the direction of council and the efforts of staff.
Thank you. And what do you think our constituents would say in terms of how we have responded in being business friendly and with good customer service?
Well, that would be right up my alley. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for that question. And I don't think, and I'm going to couch this by saying that I don't think that my response is only exclusive to development services. I think that every department in the city of Bakersfield strives to provide exemplary customer service every day, that every department in the city understands that who their employers are. Those are the citizens of the city of Bakersfield, and as public servants, we understand that and look to provide that every day, every hour on the job.
Thank you. I don't see any other requests to speak. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of questions. The general plan, when we started talking about it, I don't know, it was 3+ years ago in the Planning and Development Committee, it was my understanding that, when we started the conversation and ideas started coming back, that the Planning and Development Committee would have kind of the first look and comment on that. And I did not hear that in the presentation. Has that idea changed?
Actually, there is an update scheduled on the next Planning and Development Committee agenda to provide an update to the committee. Thank you, Councilmember, for your question. The work of the consultant would provide an opportunity to make presentation to the committee. At present, we felt it most valuable after our update to the Planning and Development Committee to bring that information to the Planning Commission and to the council overall. But there is wiggle within the consultant's contract to provide for a specific presentation to the Planning and Development Committee, if so desired.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Duly noted. Thank you.
One other comment is just, I like construction and I like things happening, but I don't like dust in the air. I think sticks in the air is a better term for it.
Noted. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Less
Thank you.
dust, more sticks.
Anyone else? I see none. Thank you, Mr. Boyle.
Thank you.
And now, are you back for economic development, or who is?
Yeah, Madam Mayor
Assist-
and Council, Jackie
Jackie
Kitchen
Kitchen.
will be presenting on economic and community development with.
Okay. Now this one's
Boyle.
going to be really exciting, right?
Which is an affirmation that the development services presentation was pretty darn exciting all by itself, correct? Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate that affirmation. My second presentation or component of presenting to the council tonight or this afternoon would be to talk about the Economic Development Division and its pathways forward, its evolution into an economic and community development department. I'd like to also thank Assistant City Manager Ms. Kitchen to be a component of this presentation and to advise council that my presentation here is largely to talk about the last year, and Ms. Kitchen's presentation will be largely to talk about the future. So coming back to the original slide from the Development Services Department presentation, I noted that we would talk about the Economic and Community Development Division as a separate component of the presentation. And let's do that now. The current department has 15 employees, and I would say that in the last year, I tip my hat to the employees that were in place over the course of the last year, because in my time as a public servant, I dare say that I could put them right up there at the top in terms of working through the establishment of a brand new economic development division and staffing a community development division. And largely that hasn't really totally been completed until, it's not entirely completed right now. The last couple of employees are in the hiring process right now. So they're working with a very limited staff. You know, Madam Mayor and Council, just how much the department has accomplished in the short time since that department was created. So in the last year, the Economic and Community Development Department currently manages over $32 million in grant funds. And to put that in context, when I was doing the research to find out just exactly how many grant dollars were in play, one of my employees came up to me after doing this research and said, I didn't really realize the difference in the amount of dollars that we really have created over time. This employee had been with us 5 years, and 5 years ago there were $7 million worth of grants being managed, and today there are $32 million. And it kind of puts it into context just how hard this team has worked in bringing resources that the council has taken and put to good use. So this past year, they've also completed the adoption of the 5-year consolidated plan and the analysis of impediments to fair housing, and begun to implement a new annual action plan. This department also manages and monitors all HUD funds for compliance, whether that's block grant funds or emergency solutions grants or home or HOPWA. They also were responsible for the HAP grant for bringing $3.26 million in funds to serve the homeless into the community, as well as $1.27 million in HEAP funds. Along with that, the list is very long in terms of the amount of funds that have been captured and brought to the council for approval and ultimately agreements to expend those funds over the past year. And some of those funds are already working in the community today, whether that's funding improvements at the mission or funding the expansion of the Bakersfield Homeless Center and their job center building at Union Avenue, and not to overshadow the importance of the development of the Bakersfield Homeless Navigation Center and the work that's ongoing there with the anticipated opening. So in terms of our economic development component, we've initiated and kicked off an economic opportunity area program and have begun funding projects within the 7 economic opportunity areas. The EPA Brownfields grant and the TCC grant program were just clicking along like a well-oiled machine when the pandemic came along, and we had already scheduled multiple stakeholder meetings and workshops to begin to develop consensus within the major players within the community when the pandemic came along. We're anxious to begin to continue those efforts once we get the green light to do that. But that's not to ignore the efforts that were in place working towards that. And we're about completed the South Mill Creek Master Plan update. I have a telephone call later today to discuss final edits with that. So also, both divisions worked hard in terms of the preparing for specific housing projects for construction here in the city, whether it was the 22-unit 22nd Street Lofts project or the residents at East Hills, Brentwood Crossing, and the Hack Infill project, which was funded with PSVS dollars. Those are, I think within one of my presentations, I said something to the effect that in 1 year we will have done almost a decade's worth of multifamily projects by capitalizing on grant dollars that have been captured specific to affordable housing, as well as capitalizing on PSVS funding. So with that said, it's about to pass the reins. I want to close by saying that it's been an absolute pleasure working as department head for the Economic and Community Development Division, and I know what they can do, so I know that with the continued guidance from the city manager's office that there are great things on the horizon.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle. Welcome, Ms. Kitchen.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Council members. It's good to be before you. It's been a couple of months since I've been on the dais in this capacity, so I'm happy to step in and take over the presentation from here. So as you are aware, since Mr. Clegg has been with us and over the last several months, we've spent a lot of time on the City Council goals. We've really refined them, we've reformatted them, we've thought about what our priorities are. And in looking at those City Council goals as laid out here and comparing them to the overall body of work that the ECD division has been working on, we see that that division is either the primary or the secondary entity that is implementing several of those goals, including goal number 2, addressing homelessness, 4, enhancing the quality of life within our community, 5, strengthening and diversifying our economic base, 6, enhancing infrastructure, 7, promoting community pride, and 8, investing in urban revitalization and downtown development. We also know that in the past, these functions were fulfilled by a full service economic and community development department that provided business support, allocation of federal and state funding, specific targeted programming to bring new business to Bakersfield. But unfortunately, in 2011, as you know how the story goes, the state eliminated redevelopment, and with it, that department was eliminated. But we also know in going through our budget process last year that the passage of PSVS brought an opportunity to reinstate a number of those functions. And now when we fast forward to the year 2020, we see an even stronger need to prioritize economic and community development for Bakersfield and specific to the city of Bakersfield. We know we have challenges facing our oil and gas industry, new economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. We see increased funding and programs coming to us from the state and federal government to address homelessness and affordable housing. We also hear the call from our community for stronger engagement and more inclusive policies. Then when we also look at the 16 comparable cities, the 16 largest cities within the state, we see that 11 of those have a dedicated full-service economic and community development department, and just 5, including Bakersfield, have it combined within another department. So moving forward this year, the city manager's office is recommending that we extract that community development division out of development services and elevate it to a standalone department. To do this, we would only have to make a couple of minor changes to staffing. We would mostly utilize existing staffed and funded positions with a few adjustments. We would adjust the division head to a department head position. We would add a business manager, and we would add a homeless services principal within a third unit that would be fully dedicated to addressing homelessness. And we've talked about this a little bit in the past. Back in February, I believe, I made a presentation to you at Councilmember Parlier's request to talk about homelessness and the importance of it within our community and the various programs and workload that go along with it. So I'll talk a little bit more about what that division will do in a moment. The new department would also include the Convention and Visitors Bureau and our AEG and ASM contract management at the arena to fully form out the department. The overall fiscal impacts of this adjustment are relatively minor in the scheme of things. This is a comparison of what Phase 2 for PSVS implementation looked like when we talked about it last year. There was an ECD division head position, also a GIS technician and an account clerk that were expected to come online this year. With this proposal, we would still bring those new positions forward, and also the business manager and homeless services principal. So the overall staffing and salary increase would be around $267,000. And at the end of the day, our office believes that this investment is worth it and that the return on investment will be clear. This is a look at what the new department's budget would look like. Again, this was the result of extracting the division out and making it a department. You'll see that most of the new department is funded through PSVS, as nearly all of their functions will be focused on fulfilling council goals through PSVS type measures. And I'll get into a little bit more detail on that in a moment now. So I'll go through each of the three units and what they will be focusing on, and I'll try to be quick. I know it's getting late in the afternoon, but I'll start with the Economic Development Unit. So they will be focusing on goals 5 and 6 through the implementation of several programs, and those are laid out here. Also, the direct correlation to the action item within your goals document that we've spent time preparing together. So you'll see here they'll be implementing the CARES CDBG Small Business Assistance Plans, bringing forward a citywide market analysis and economic development strategy. And I do want to note that we'll be talking about that one in more detail on Wednesday at the council meeting. We have a workshop dedicated to that specifically this coming Wednesday. They'll also be implementing that EOA plan that Mr. Boyle touched on, which will create economic development opportunities and create and preserve jobs within our existing business areas. They'll develop and implement other specific programmings, again, that are specific to the city of Bakersfield and work in partnership with other regional programs throughout the county. We'll also have enhanced grant writer opportunities. We'll coordinate with Public Works to implement that Making Downtown Vision Plan, which will bring and facilitate improved pedestrian and bicycle improvements to our downtown area. The unit will also be working towards fulfillment of goals 7 and 8 by marketing Bakersfield in partnership with the CVBB, working on the TCC program. That's that Transformative Climate Communities program that we had to put on hold with the pandemic. We'll be able to bring that forward under this new structure. They'll also implement the local urban renewal program, the federal EPA brownfield revitalization program, and the new SB2 funding that we are anticipating will bring about $1.7 million in state affordable housing money to our city each year. Moving over to the Community Development Unit, they'll be focusing on goals 4, 6, and 8. They will do that by facilitating CDBG HUD improvements to parks, curb gutter, and sidewalk. They'll also implement federal, state, and local affordable housing programs, and they'll do the monitoring reporting for those programs. It's not the most exciting part of the job, but part of receiving that federal and state money is doing extensive monitoring and working with HUD to make sure that we are in compliance with all of their requirements. And that does take a considerable amount of staff time in order for us to keep that funding. And then moving on to the Homeless Services Unit, their main focus will be goal number 2, addressing homelessness. This will take many forms. The one that's closest and nearest to my heart, of course, is the opening of the Bakersfield Homeless Navigation Center. I'll be coming back in late June or July to give you another workshop update on how we're doing with the construction there. But it's going very well, and I have to thank all city departments, especially Public Works and Development Services, for all the work that they've been doing, and I'm excited to bring you pictures and tell you more about the progress at an upcoming meeting. This homeless services unit will also manage the contracts that go along with that center. As you know, we have a contract with an operator, Mercy House, and then we'll also have subcontracts with Kern Medical, Kern Behavioral Health, Kern Human Services, the Homeless Collaborative, et cetera, to actually be on the site and administering services. In addition to that, this unit will continue work towards bringing the new expansions of 40 beds each at the Bakersfield Homeless Center and at the Mission at Kern County. We'll also work with our fellow service providers to create a true functional referral network where all 4 shelter facilities work together to address the homeless that are on the streets, and where we place people in accordance to their need, and where we can really dig in and work on some of the chronic encampment and repeat sort of issues that are plaguing our city. This new principal and their team will also work closely with the Bakersfield Kern Regional Homeless Collaborative to make sure that we're coordinating what we're doing with what our partners in the rest of the community are doing. They will also administer state homeless project programs, including HEAP, HAP, SB2, HAP 3, HAP 4, or whatever we call it, in the next few years. We'll also be working on COVID program management. There's new funding coming through CARES and other programs to us to address COVID-related issues on homelessness. This includes the partnership that we made with the county to make sure the trailers are at the fairgrounds and other projects like that. And then, of course, they'll continue administering federal dollars related to homelessness. So as we look ahead, the next steps in the creation of the new department aren't that complicated, but we all had to kind of go back and look. It's been a while since something like this was done in the city, so it's kind of exciting. But the first and foremost is the recruitment for that ECD director. We know that we need someone dynamic, energetic, and who will bring a vision to our community and will help realize the 8 goals that your council has. So Christian and I and HR are working on that recruitment now. And in addition to that, Development Services will be preparing and transitioning for the adjustment. We envision the new department to stay housed within the Development Services building for the time being as a cost savings. Then in July, if the budget is adopted with this change, the department will actually be created, and we will initiate the other recruitments that I mentioned related to the homeless principal and the business manager. And then from there, for the next fiscal year, the department will get to work at implementing those programs, making sure that we have a solid return on that investment. And I'll be working closely and overseeing the new department to make sure that the department head is coming and providing regular updates and progress reports to your council. So with that, I am available for questions, and Christian may have a few words as well.
Thank you, Ms. Kitchen. Any requests to speak? I don't see any whatsoever. Councilmember Rivera.
Just a quick question. I'm curious on the EOA front. So I know we funded it last year. We're re-upping our commitment this year. Have we funded anything? Have we funded anything yet with those dollars, or?
Yeah, that's a great question, Councilmember Rivera. So we funded it last year, as you mentioned. We didn't quite have the resources yet to actually advertise it, but the Development Services staff has worked really hard over the last few months to actually put together the application, the implementation documents, and I believe we have 2 applications pending right now to actually allocate those funds.
Are they in Southeast Bakersfield? No.
Bitwise,
Okay.
that's right.
Oh, great.
Point.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Boyle just reminded me that we actually have our first one coming to council on Wednesday to fund Bitwise improvements to their building downtown.
Okay.
And then another is on 34th Street.
Great. Perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Freeman.
No questions?
Oh, I just saw your, all right, well, your name just flashed. Ms. Kitchen, thank you so much. I'm very excited about the potential for economic development and the impact on our constituents here. The residents, I think, there will be many positive outcomes as a result of our investment in economic development for all people. So thank you very much for your efforts.
I do have a comment.
Oh, there is another one. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Sorry about that, Mayor. I just wanted to clarify something. Councilmember Rivera made a comment about re-upping next year for the EOAs, and my sidebars with Mr. Clegg indicated that that was not the case. So can we get clarity for sure if we are actually funding these EOAs one more year?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Gonzalez. The way that we had handled the EOAs is that we did propose in the fiscal year 2021, allocating $700,000 for the economic opportunity areas from PSVS, so that's in the proposed budget. We had anticipated taking the unspent funds from this year and rolling those into, the year-ending fund balance. Based on council feedback, I've been in conversations with staff to, instead of just rolling those into fund balance, to carry those forward into next fiscal year so that we would in fact have $200,000 for each of the EOAs. The proposed budget had $100,000 in each, but now we're proposing to carry those forward and have $200,000 in each.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, thank you so much. And next we have Recreation and Parks. I think we probably need another 5 minutes or we won't have everybody. So let's take a quick break before the next. So Diane, you get to bring up the end with Recreation and Parks, and you always have pretty things to show us.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Diane Hoover, Director, Recreation and Parks. And with me today, I have the Assistant Director, Darren Budak, and also the Business Manager, Rajan Mistry. And they can help answer any questions at the end. So the Recreation and Parks Department enhances the quality of life through programs, parks, and partnerships. And through my presentation, you'll see all of those. So first thing I wanted to do is go over some of the accomplishments. The park on the cover was Belcourt Park, and we were able to open Belcourt Park. It is one of the first HOA-maintained public parks that we have. So it has public access, but is maintained by the HOA at Belcourt. And the other park that we're getting ready to open is Bridle Creek. Bridle Creek is in the southwest part of Bakersfield, and we did take the fence down last week at due to requests, but the playground and basketball court remains closed. It is our most recent dog park that we were able to open, and it's a very popular large dog park. Other accomplishments include the Stern Park ADA improvements and the Lowell Shade structure and ADA at Lowell Park, and also the Kaiser Permanente exercise equipment. It is almost done. The fence still remains up due to COVID, but also the surface is still needing to be completed. But it's a very exciting, it's one of our bigger exercise areas that we have. And our partnerships and sponsorships, we have a number of them. What I wanted to highlight was with the Kern Tree Foundation. They help us sponsor our tree plantings through parks, and they do the Arbor Day tree planting. And the next few, the Kaiser Permanente, the First 5 Kern, USA Swim, and the American Red Cross, all are grants so that we can offer our swim lessons for only $5 to agencies and to individuals that can't afford the full cost of the swim lessons. So, and then also the Good Neighbor Festival and Bike Bakersfield helps us with our Build a Bike program. And other accomplishments that we had were the citywide from last year, the PSVS funding for tree plantings and small equipment. So we planted 3,550 trees, and we replaced 32,500 small plants. And then in addition, as Nick has mentioned, that we opened the pickleball and basketball courts at Mace Marin. The basketball courts still remain closed. We were able to open the pickleball court just last week. So the other thing that was funded was the rapid response team in Parks and Recreation. And we work side by side with code enforcement for many projects, but some of the projects are park-related projects. So with this, we removed over 351,000 pounds of trash in parks and different facilities. The encampments, almost 50 encampments we helped clear. And special projects are things like adding gates to some of our restrooms in the parks and maintaining areas in the park that were vandalized or needing repairs. So the rapid response team was able to do a lot of these repairs that would have fallen to park staff. But since they were able to do it, park staff was able to do their normal activities and maintain the parks that way. So one thing I want to highlight is through COVID-19, with everything closing and closed, the recreation and park staff stayed open. We kept the restrooms open. We kept the parks open for everyone to come. There was nowhere else for people to go. They had stay-at-home orders, and they really couldn't travel. They really couldn't do anything, so they came to the parks. And our governor, when he issued the stay-at-home order, he said, well, you can go to the parks. You can walk around your neighborhood and go to the parks. And so in order to meet a lot of the COVID requirements, we scheduled our staff for 7 days a week, and we put one person in a vehicle. And we switched their hours from a regular 8 to 5 to a 10-hour day, 4 days a week. And then that way we were able to spread the staff out in 7 days a week. They worked weekends, they worked weekdays, and our attendance at the parks grew tremendously. Every day. It wasn't just a weekend, it was every day. The park at Riverwalk, the parking lot was full almost every day of the week. We kept the dog parks open as well, whereas many people throughout the state decided to close theirs. We were able to keep ours open because people kept their distance. And then we also offered meals at the Martin Luther King Center. So each day, weekday, we were able to give the children meals. They came and we served them. Then the last thing we were able to do is start a program online called #WreckTheHouse. So every Friday, it goes out on Facebook, and you can watch this. And it's sponsored by our recreation staff, and they have several items and several activities that you can do at home or on the sidewalk in front of your house. It's a really great program. Then in addition to the meals, then the recreation staff started developing things that kids, when they came to pick up their meals, they could actually take some activities home and do it at home and then bring it back. And it was very, very much appreciated by the parents in that area. So the Recreation and Parks Department has 3 different divisions: the Recreation Division, the Parks Division, which is our largest, and then the Administrative Services Division, which consists of the new PSVS teams, as well as the Planning and Financial Services. Our proposed budget for 2021 is $24,844,000. And what you see there is the general fund, and that's That increase is basically because of our increase in water use that we anticipate next year, and also electricity. At the park, at the Kaiser Permanente Sports Village, in years past, the two services that are there, that is AYSO and Golden Empire Youth Football, they would pay for the electricity for the pumping of the water. But since we have expanded it so much and are going to continue to expand, the city's going to take over that and just bill them according to their services. And then also this includes the minimum wage increases as well. And then the PSVS, you see quite a large increase there because we want to match the RRT team that we already have, so we can offer those services 7 days a week. Right now, we just have one team instead of two. We want to double that team with 6 new employees for the rapid response team, and that also includes the equipment as well. And so for a total increase of 7.33%. Our staffing complement would almost get us back to the days in 2008. We were posing for 169 employees. And with that, it's the rapid response team addition. In the Parks Division, which is our largest division, each employee maintains about 13 acres, 13.36 acres of property. So this includes parks and streetscapes as well. And it doesn't include our rapid response team because they do special projects and the cleanups. And our capital improvements that we're proposing is Kaiser Permanente Sports Village, $8 million. The $8 million is divided up in, since we were lucky enough to receive the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant last year of $3 million, that does require a dollar-for-dollar match. So $3 million coming to match that. And then the Park Improvement Fund of $2 million will make up that difference. And this is for the continuation of Kaiser Permanente Sports Village and the new youth football fields in there. And then we had a petition provided to us this past few months to request more lights, or there's no lights at Beach Park Skate Park, and they requested the lights. So that is a proposed PSVS funded program. Linnell Brahma, we were fortunate enough to get a Prop 68 grant, just over $3 million last year. It is at parkland over in the southeast side of Bakersfield, in Councilmember Rivera's ward, and he was part of the whole meetings that we had with the public out there, and they were very, very excited, and we were excited to get the grant. So it is a dedicated parkland. We are ready to move forward with that project. And then the rest of the few of these include the park rehabilitation projects, proposals, because as you know, we build the parks and build the playgrounds, and after several years, the playgrounds just become unusable, or not necessarily unusable, just past their lifespan, and you can't replace the parts anymore when they give out. So Tevis Park, Deer Peak Park, and Stone Creek Park are the ones that we're looking at for playground rehabilitation. In the Park of Riverwalk, we need a new roof on one of the restrooms, and the amphitheater needs a new paint job. And then other contingent projects from the PSVS committee include several of the ones that are listed here, and for better ADA access and just better access altogether for these type of parks and projects. And then can't forget the park trash enclosures that Councilmember Gonzalez pointed out that we really do need those in several parks. So we're hoping to do that as well. And that, and that completes the presentation. I didn't forward that one very fast, did I? So.
But you failed to show when I was going into the pool at 22 degrees. Thank you very much.
It was
Councilmember-
52 degrees, but that.
Oh, it was 50, I remember. It was 44 the year before, something like that. Vice Mayor.
Thanks, Mayor. A couple questions, Diane. First one, so I think we're talking to somebody potentially about some solar for the city. Maybe this is an opportunity to look at the regional parks too for extra solar, I'm sorry, for our electrical needs? out there?
Yes, that is part of the whole master plan, and Public Works has that underway and helping us with that, yes. So
Okay.
yes,
So there's an opportunity that
Oh,
we can
yes.
reduce
It-
those costs?
at several locations, the Park at Riverwalk, Mesa Marin, Kaiser Permanente Sports Village, there's several projects underway for that, yes.
Whenever we kind of, I guess, seal the deal on those, if you can come back to council and just kind of give us an update on what those are and the reduced cost to the city. And the last question, Diane, on the PSVS rapid response team, what's their areas of responsibility? Where do they go? Where do they target?
They go all over the city, including the riverbed, all the parks. They sometimes get requested from code enforcement to assist with them as well. So they all over the city. There's no one specific area. And then their projects include park projects or even some in the streetscape, perhaps.
Besides responding to complaints, do they do any proactive activities?
Yes. The gates on the restrooms were proactive. That was part of something they took the initiative on through direction and completed those.
So I've noticed a couple of mattresses. One's in Andre's area. It's in Median at South H. No, I'm getting to my area too. Don't worry. I'm circling around to a whole subject here. So one of them's there, and it really borders both of our areas. And there's another one off of Acres, and I noticed over by Ming Avenue and Home Depot, there's been some carts on the street for, I don't know, days at least. So besides rapid response, is there a mechanism, because I think there's other city personnel or potential other rec and parks personnel that are traversing those areas in their daily business to get that back, the rapid response, so we can get that stuff cleaned up?
Sure. Yes.
No, so is there a mechanism?
Yes, if they see it, they report it, and there's also the app that anybody can take a picture and send that in, and we will respond right away on the app.
Well,
as
I've kind of deliberately not done that, just to see how long it would last out there. Like I said, it's going on 3 weeks. On the mattresses, pretty large. That as city staff or your department, as they traverse, that they get that stuff back, whether they do it via the app or some other mechanism. So there's a consolidated effort with us all working together, and that would sure be appreciated. Thank you.
And Vice Mayor, through the Chair, Mayor, if I may, on that same topic, I think it's a timely topic, and I heard this from the council also in our workshop. And so I think with the Clean City initiative that's being added as an element of our efforts for next year's council goals, that there would be two important steps to that. One being to come back in a workshop with the council and outline, just for information purposes, which units are responsible for which areas. For example, public rights of way versus private property versus encampments versus parks, because we have 4 different teams that respond to bulky items or trash or encampments. And I think there's some opportunities to coordinate between those different teams in better ways, as well as an eyes and ears program where we do trainings for city employees to ask them to be the eyes and ears of the city, regardless of what their role or responsibility is, so they can start making those reports to the right place so that we can be a little more timely on these, as well as with increases to the rapid response team on the park side and increases to the rapid response team on the code enforcement side. I think it gives us some additional ability to have some more routine checks on key areas that we just know always have issues. Instead of always waiting for that response, we can go and do some more routine work with the, really the almost the doubling of both of those teams. It gives us an ability to be a little bit more routine. So I take the spirit of that comment that there are some good opportunities, and I think there's several things we can do as a coordinated effort next year, and want to come back in a workshop and walk through that all with the council.
Well, thanks. I really look forward to that. And as talking to my colleagues too, as a council member, you're out there looking at everything, and I know that our employees are, you're focused on your job and you're out there and you're doing hard work, but tendency may be, I'm just focusing on my job, I have blinders on, or I'm just assigned to my silo, and that's all I worry about. And as long as we have the tools and the mechanisms coming online with rapid response, that we utilize those as effectively as possible. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, it's our city, and it's all of our responsibility together. Councilmember Rivera.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Diane. So obviously, kind of really exciting what's happening in Southeast Bakersfield with respect to Leno Brahma, and I want to thank you and your staff for being proactive there and engaging the community. And I know that's a process. That'll be a fun process for that neighborhood to engage in. Well after I'm long gone, not sitting in the seat. I look forward to seeing it done here in the next few years. So thank you for that. Two questions. One, have we had any conversation? So I know you and I have talked about this, but the Veterans Hall at Martin Luther King Center, which the county does an absolutely awful job of maintaining, as it does with at least one other facility in Southeast Bakersfield. It's my understanding they want to rid themselves of it, and I'm wondering if we've had any conversations with the county about that, and if there's a light at the end of that tunnel, or what you're thinking and what your thoughts are there.
Mayor Go, Councilmember Rivera, yes, we have. Several city staff met with a few of the county staff out there on site several months ago before COVID, and then when COVID hit, they said, well, we're just going to put that on hold right now.
Okay.
And I have not heard if there's any further progress. We've been in touch just by email, and I have not heard, so.
Okay.
Councilmember Rivera, just to add on to that a little bit, whenever the county dispenses of a property, they give notice to other local agencies and give them a first right essentially to purchase that property. We did express interest, as Ms. Hoover indicated, in possibly acquiring that property. However, in early conversations with the county, we were told that there was already another party that had expressed an interest. And then COVID happened, as Ms. Hoover indicated, and they kind of suspended actions. But we did give them a letter to let them know if that other party lost interest, we would be interested in pursuing.
Oh, okay. I guess as long as it's going to be used, I don't care who the party is. But if that does fall through, I would just ask that we keep a pulse on that, because I know we can do a better job than they do in maintaining it and utilizing it, because it doesn't even get utilized the way it should anymore either. Other question was, and this is along the lines of what we do on the with our streets, in deploying a pavement management system. Is there any type of grading done on our parks? I mean, I imagine we have a long list of deferred maintenance that we try and check off as the years progress, but have we ever stopped and said, we've got these 15 parks, and by comparison to, no offense to, say, newer developments in, say, Councilmember Freeman's district, but they lack this, because they've been there for 30, 40 years. Is there such a list that maybe has all of these older facilities and maybe a grade that might get it closer to what other parks and other amenities are like? And is that something you think we could wrap our head around in the course of the next year?
Councilmember Rivera, yes, actually, we look at the different playgrounds especially, and we have a whole list of when those need to be replaced, and that's what we're trying to do with this list going forward. You know, sometimes the park design itself doesn't lend itself to a whole lot more amenities, but we constantly are looking at the parks for more playability, more usability by the public.
Do we, I know we did it with Linnell Brahma. I know we did it a few years back with the skate park at Plans Park, where we held some meetings at South High School. We had kids come out and they actually helped and had input on the design. When we make, when we consider, say the list of improvements you have here, have we thought of maybe engaging the nearby residents and getting input on what they might want to see with new dollars invested?
Councilmember Rivera and Mayor Go, rest of City Council, our last master plan for the Parks Department was back in 2008. And so, yes, we are in need of a new master plan. That's one of my long-term lists of things to do. And in a master plan development, you do engage the whole entire community on what they would like to see in parks and in future parks and park development, amenities, facilities, all of those kinds of things. So yes, instead of piece by piece and place by place, it's a whole master plan.
Is that, I mean, I don't think I see anything in here referencing a master plan now, but is that something, is that needed 12 years later?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it is needed. Normally you do a master plan for parks. I mean, in the profession, it's about every 10 to 15 years.
Okay. Okay. Well, I would ask that maybe that's an item I'd ask staff to maybe look into, and maybe perhaps in the next few months. Is that the type of thing you contract outside for? Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'd certainly be interested in learning more about that and whether we might endeavor in that in the next year or two. Otherwise, thank you very much for all your hard work.
Thank you. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Hoover, thank you so much for the work that you do and your department does every single day, and for all the responses to my requests on a regular basis. I appreciate it so much. I do have a question. I'm just curious, when it comes to capital improvement projects, can you give us the total amount that will be allocated from PSVS for capital improvement?
I will have Raj help us with that total. Go back here. So what the PSVS team did, the community team, they put some things on contingent and then some things on proposed.
I see that. Yeah.
On the proposed side, Councilmember Gonzalez, for PSVS, we're looking at $3.25 million. That includes the $3 million matching for Kaiser Permanent Sports Village and the Beach Park Skate Park lighting. Sorry?
I'm just trying to do quick math with you.
Sorry. And then on the PSVS side, I did a mental math right now on the contingent projects as described. They're about roughly 550,000 approximately, plus or minus a few thousand on the contingent side for PSVS.
So total around $3.8 million.
Roughly, yes.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to make a couple of points to staff in general. When we proposed Measure N to the voters, one of the goals was to enhance neighborhoods through additional code enforcement and the improvement of park maintenance. And so in my mind, people are thinking, community members are thinking that their neighborhood parks will be improved. And certainly there's been additional support in maintaining those parks, but still, there, as Councilmember Rivera's questions alluded to, there's still some major improvements that need to be made, investments that need to be made. I can point to a number of parks in Ward 2. Saunders has significant issues. We just heard from residents in Westchester about Jastro Park and the need to address some of our historic assets. And so there are a number of real investments that need to be made. And it does bother me that we're allocating another $3 million for the Kaiser Sports Village when we have so many needs in neighborhood parks. And so I really want to encourage us to look at how we can increase those investments in those parks, at least develop a really clear plan so that we can communicate with the public. I feel very strongly about this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gonzalez. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Diane. I want to first thank you for not retiring and working a little longer because of the COVID problems. The tree plantings, I've gotten very good responses from constituents on, our landscaping looking better with all the trees planted, and the Riverwalk chairs that are being installed look much better. I've sat on those wire things for a few years, and the new chairs will be great there. On Riverwalk, I would like to propose, and maybe this is more to the city manager, but it's a great facility, and it's underused. Once we get past COVID, if somehow we can think about free concerts in that park setting in the future, I think would be a big positive. I do believe that, COVID has shown us the value of parks even more than in the past. Like you mentioned, I go to Riverwalk Park throughout the week, different times of day, and it's just a lot of people there. They are social distancing, but it's a great facility, and all up and down the bike path is being used. And I believe all parks, are economic drivers for the community. And as we look at economic development, it's important that we improve our older parks. And I think that the big regional parks are also attractors for economic development. And so all things parks are good. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Smith, for your support on that.
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay. One quick question to Diane. Maybe I missed it, but the abbreviations for where the funding is coming from, was it COF and PIF on some of the column? What does that mean?
Yes, Mayor Go, Councilmember Freeman, and rest of City Council. The PSVS is well known, but the Park Improvement Fund is the fund that is collected through property taxes designated for parks and park improvement. And then the COF is the Capital Outlay Fund. So that's the Capital Outlay Fund from the general fund.
PIF is for the capital outlay, or COF?
PIF is Park Improvement Fund.
Oh, okay, that. Well, then the capital, does that come from the sort of the landscape district, lighting landscape, road district we set up on new developments where people pay on their property tax a pro rata amount every month or every 6 months to maintain the arterials and the landscaping? Are the parks in that also?
Councilmember Freeman, yes. Park Improvement Fund is part of that fund.
And those are on, I don't know, it's about half the city has those and half the city doesn't.
Councilmember Freeman.
Councilmember Freeman, we have a business manager, Raj Mistry, will help answer some of those.
Councilmember Freeman, the COF, it's Capital Outlay Fund. It's basically the general fund through various sources of tax revenue that comes in. What you're referring to is the Consolidated Maintenance District. Those are the fees that are charged on the property taxes annually to pay for some of our services and the maintenance in certain parks within the city.
Yeah, but that's mostly the newer stuff, isn't it? That where the people are actually paying we have to go to the general fund, which maybe we used to do 30 years ago or something, for the other parks that don't have this ongoing funding from property taxes. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And one other question, it has to do kind of COVID. Are our rec and park employees now able to ride two in a truck again, or are we still on the staggered thing when only one person can be in a truck and, you know, makes it more difficult to maintain these things?
That's right. Councilmember Freeman, right after Memorial Day weekend, we went to 2 people in a truck and 8 hours a day, 5 days a week with skeleton crews on weekends. So we did switch over. Part of the issue is when it gets really hot outside, we have to look out for each other. And so for heat illnesses and heat-related emergencies, we need somebody there to assist with that and watch out for each other. So that is a OSHA requirement. So we have to meet OSHA and COVID at the same time. So we're managing.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hoover. Any other questions, colleagues? I don't see any. Thank you so much, and thank you to your entire team for all of your hard work. Parks indeed do make life better. And now going to our public. Madam City Clerk, would you please call the first public speaker?
Our first public speaker is Mr. Michael Turnipseed.
I feel like I need to ask our Deputy City Attorney a hard question. You've been sitting here all this time. We'll have to make up one for you. Welcome, Mr. Turnipseed.
It seems the biggest, Michael Turnipseed, representing the Kern County Taxpayers Association, and we did support Measure N. I'll premise that because I'm going to wander into that. But one thing that was seemed to be spoken about a lot today was reactive teams. We need to react to this. We need to react to that. It seems that instead of having a culture of being proactive, addressing the root causes of trash, we spend lots of money and lots of time talking about picking up trash. And when I saw, let's talk Measure N because we're talking about positions. Last year we hired 122 new positions at a cost of $22 million ongoing. This year we have 93 positions and I think 44 are police and 47 are others going on the payroll. So that's another 17 million. That's 39 million. That roughly represents 54% of Measure N's revenue this year going to ongoing, perpetuating costs. Instead of making the investments and having the money to invest in really the city needs, I think that should be, but when you start the budget process, and I see this again, and I'll talk about the article I did right here, because I saw this last Wednesday in Fresno on G.Wire. Darius Assimi has his own online newspaper that he pays for. There's no advertising, so he hired a bunch of old Fresno Bee reporters to have a better paper than the Bee has now. And it was pretty direct. And the big takeaway was, with all the issues that Fresno's facing, and we face the same things, The city budget in Fresno is mostly about preserving bureaucracies and catering to union interests, and is where all new ideas go to die. Because everything here consumes everything at a greater rate, and they're not making investments in making the place better. So we are consuming more and more of our money to address problems rather than investing money and getting grants to solve the problems. And I talked about that a lot in Measure N. This money should be after the police and the homeless to invest in quality of life, to invest in amenities, to make our place a better place, not just react to clean up the trash, react to keep up the weeds, react because we're having social issues. Instead of disengaging with the people who have issues, many cities, the police are engaging. You see people shaking hands, walking together, actually talking instead of not engaging. So, culture. And I've talked to the city manager about this several times. And you talk about the budget. Everything is consuming, the problems are consuming everything, and investment in solving the problems are getting very little. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turnipseed. Do we have any other public speakers? For those of you who are viewing online, if you'd like to comment, you're welcome to submit an email to our city council via the city clerk. Council members, any general comments? And we can go back to city manager for closing comments. Anything further? I don't see any. Mr. Clegg, would you like to offer some closing comments?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a few closing comments. We've completed our workshops of the departments. We have, from a calendar perspective, our initial reading of public hearing on Wednesday. Our final public hearing will be on the 24th. We have prepared comments from the Measure and Oversight Committee and have those summarized up within each categories with their votes and their funding amount, and we'll be sharing that with you probably this afternoon, if not tomorrow morning. I wanted to highlight one item that that we failed to highlight in our first workshop, is that we actually held in PSVS, it's not a large amount of funding, but there is a small amount of funding in PSVS to the tune of $500,000 to be able to be responsive to council priorities and council initiatives beyond what staff had proposed. And so there is some room for city council to have some dialogue about, what that could be used for, whether that might be a park master plan, as we heard today, or whether that might be to highlight, one of the city council goals. We were able to identify just, a little bit of funding that was available for city council to set some priorities on for additional, efforts towards investment and key areas as well. And so that's something that can be a discussion point in our public hearings coming forward. It also can be a discussion point today, for that matter. But we have the proposed budget for you, and open to answer any final questions.
Colleagues, any final questions before we go to the Vice Mayor? Seeing none, Vice Mayor?
Motion to receive and file.
You have a motion to receive and file. Madam Clerk?
Vice Mayor Parlier,
Aye.
Council Members Rivera. Aye. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Smith.
Councilmember Smith, we need your vote. You might need to unmute. We are making an effort to unmute you. And Councilmember Freeman, get ready also, please.
You waiting for me?
Yes,
I'm waiting.
Yes, your vote, sir.
My vote is aye.
that was Freeman. Councilmember Smith?
I vote yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
So motion is approved with council members Weir and Sullivan absent.
Thank you very much. And with that, we stand adjourned at 2:49. Time for lunch.
Thank you.